You're going to be in for quite a ride today. This is going to be a fantastic show. Of course, you can visit us at amtvmedia.com as we're working on the full integration of our live radio show. We're putting together the video technology, make sure all of our audio feeds, etc., are working properly. The best way to tune into the radio show is on greenwave.com. That, of course, is green with an E, wave, like you're surfing that big, bad wave at Jaws. That's kind of how I picture it, at least. So check us out. Again, big thanks to American Freedom Radio. You can check them out as well, AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Of course, our syndicate. I have Vinny Eastwood of the Vinny Eastwood Show on during the second hour. And we've been putting out a ton of provocative content as we approach the end of the year here. In fact, I just put out a preview video for today's show. In fact, we're sharing that across Facebook and Twitter, tweeting it out to the loving public so they can join us here. We'll also be taking your calls today. So give us a buzz. I'd love to hear from you. 218-339-8525. You can call us on a landline. You can call us on Skype. And if you're an alien from another planet, I don't know, maybe you can call us just using your own special telepathy. So I did a little bit of a heart-to-heart video yesterday, just talking with our audience and thanking them for just what an incredible experience the past few years has been. And it's been incredibly rewarding. It's been a journey, and it really is a journey for self-actualization and finding truth in the world, finding our own truths, whether or not that be a spiritual truth or that be just looking at what's happening geopolitically in global politics. So what is happening? Why are we being trained? Why are we being pre-programmed to take our eye off the ball? There's a lot of focus on the end of the world. There's a lot of focus on Mayan 2012 prophecy. Is this the end? Could it be perhaps the beginning of a new era? There's quite a bit of theories on this, and, if we kind of go down the list, the most overreaching theory is that the world is going to come to an end, that the Mayans predicted this with all of their logic and science at the time. They could see astrologically that the world was going to come to an end. So it's a little bit, out there. But people believe this stuff, and I'm not discrediting it necessarily. I just would like to explore it on today's program with you. Take your calls on this. How is this influencing your opinion of what's to come? Not just over the next few days and for the remainder of the month. What are your plans? But what are your plans for 2013? On the flip side, I hear a lot of people are throwing end-of-the-world parties, which sounds kind of fun. I guess they're just kind of making fun of it. Maybe that's the mainstream way of just making fun of the fact that everything could come to an end in the next couple of days. There's other theories behind this, too. Another theory is that this will be the heightening of a human consciousness. This is something that I think is going to happen irregardless if the world comes to an end or not. But it's kind of a new ager theory that, this awareness is kind of taking over the planet right now, especially, and I was talking with a good friend of mine last evening, technology is so far advanced now. It is literally catapulted into the stratosphere, so to speak, where it's ahead of humanity, we can almost argue. It's ahead of the old paradigm. It has shattered through these old systems and forms of government, which, I completely agree with. And with that, a lot of people think that this change in human consciousness will make things like money and government and these existing institutions and control structures and systems completely irrelevant. I agree with that. I think that is absolutely a part of what the future is going to look like. Government, totally irrelevant in today's world. Now, the flip side and the counter argument to that is, well, Christopher, you can turn on a football game and it'll get tens of thousands, millions of more views than any content you put out. And that's true. And I think that that's precisely the point, that still there is a majority that is so in tune and really out of tune, but are programmed by the system and the establishment itself not to think, not to question anything, not to question or consider that the old paradigm is broken, that these systems are no longer needed. And that is just a part of the paradigm, the old world, and that's a part of the propaganda machine to control the masses. So I'm getting a lot of emails. You know, people are really nervous. In fact, NASA released a statement through somebody, I can't remember his name, saying he was getting, tons of emails, especially from teenagers that were suicidal, saying, we don't know if this is the end of the world or not. And they had to release a statement saying, no, it's not the end of the world. Another theory is that Planet X? Some of you study this more than me. An LNN is going to somehow crash into the planet and kill everybody and destroy all life. And it'll be the end of the world. It'll be like the second coming. It'll be, the equivalent of what happened to the dinosaurs in the Yucatan Peninsula. There's other theories that a pole shift could take place and change the gravitational force of the planet. And all of a sudden we're, flipped upside down, and maybe the state of Arizona is somehow in a cold spot, completely flipped around, and the climate changes. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. And the most relevant scenario, I guess, that we played with that a lot of people think is ridiculous, and I kind of think was a little bit ridiculous myself, was Y2K. The whole idea that, computers were going to crash because they didn't plan, for the changing of the dates and all this, hogwash. But what's interesting about this, and what I was talking about with a friend last night, what's interesting is we really aren't getting that much attention in the mainstream media even with the end of this year, 2012. And I kind of find it suspicious. I kind of find it surprising. It's almost as if Americans and people around the world are genuinely frightened of what might be in store as we approach the end of 2012. Others are looking for the second coming of Christ. Others think that the apocalypse is on the horizon, that we are very close to the end. And, this is, in deep felt religious beliefs. It almost makes me think, with so much of the world thinking that the world is coming to an end, that this is end times, that we see all these signs of Armageddon. And believe me, I see these signs myself. It almost makes me think that the great people of the world, or maybe not so great, are going to manifest the end of the world just because they think that it's happening. I see Dr. Chula in the chat says, Vinny, back on? Cool. Yeah, Vinny Eastwood, he's coming on during the second hour. In fact, I'll be on his show. We kind of do a bi-weekly where he comes on my program, and then I'll go on Vinny Eastwood's program, his first hour. So stay tuned for that. But there seems to be just a tremendous amount of distractions. So to keep our eye off the ball. Now, the biggest story today, at least, and this has been, a huge story for months, years, been part of the Arab Spring. It's been a part of the totalitarian takeover of the Middle East, propagated by the United States so they could kill people like Muammar Gaddafi to destabilize his home country of Libya, so that they could run guns through Benghazi Gate into Syria, and that they could cede to power people in Egypt from the Muslim Brotherhood, namely, I'm speaking of Mohammed Morsi, by ousting Mubarak. I always like flipping his name around a little bit. I guess it's just, potato. But here we are, a guy that supposedly has ceded power, and it's still, this country is in absolute turmoil, absolute uproar. We've got people in Tahrir Square saying, freedom or we die. Freedom or we die. Protesters breaking through police lines. I'm looking at a breaking report here from Reuters saying Morsi leaves the palace. He had to flee the palace as police battle protesters. And I'm looking at these very graphic pictures of barbed wire and police set up, where the presidential palace and where Mohammed Morsi resides. From Reuters, it says Egyptian police battled thousands of protesters outside President Mohammed Morsi's palace in Cairo on Tuesday, prompting the Islamist leader to leave the building. Officers fired tear gas at up to 10,000 demonstrators angered by Morsi's drive to hold a referendum on a new constitution on December 15th. So the people are pissed off, genuinely angered, that Morsi has not only ceded power, but is now taking over really a totalitarian rule, much like the most dangerous pawn on the face of the planet, in my opinion, President Barack Obama, who, of course, speaks for the power structure that backs him and that uses him as a device or a messenger to establish the New World Order. Some broke through police lines around his palace, referring to Mohamed Morsi, and protested next to the perimeter wall. The crowds had gathered nearby in what organizers had dubbed last warning protest against Morsi, who infuriated opponents with a November 22nd decree that expanded his powers. The people want the downfall of the regime, the demonstrators chanted. Freedom or death. The president left the palace, a presidential source who declined to be named told Reuters. A security source at the presidency also said the president had departed. So we have a Middle East completely boiling over. This is global war. This is exactly what the power structure and the global oligarchs have been constructing all along for the past several decades. This is all a part of the plan. This civil unrest is an expectation, is a guarantee. As we set sights, as the United States sets its sights on Iran, targets Iran. We saw this, of course, with the Gaza missile firings, courtesy of King Bibi Butt Boy Benny Benjamin Bib Not Netanyahu. I like to give him a few nicknames there. Maybe we'll slap him on the ass next time we see him. Hey, Bibi Boy, Butt Boy. Great job bombing the crap out of Gaza. So this is all a part of the power play, as I would like to call it, or I do call it, a power play in the Middle East. Now, Morsi ignited a storm of unrest in his bid to prevent a judiciary still packed with appointees of ousted predecessor Hosni Mubarak from derailing a troubled political transition. Facing the gravest crisis of a 6-month-old tenure, the Islamist president has shown no sign of buckling under pressure. Riot police at the palace faced off against activists chanting, "Leave, leave, leave," and holding Egyptian flags with "No to the Constitution" written on them. Protesters had assembled near mosques in northern Cairo before marching towards the palace. Our marches are against tyranny and the void constitutional decree, and we won't retract our position. This is coming from protesters until our demands are met. A spokesman for an opposition coalition of liberal, leftist, and other factions. Protesters later surrounded the palace, with some climbing on gates at the rear to look down into the gardens. At one point, people clambered onto a police armored vehicle and waved flags while riot police huddled nearby. The health ministry said 18 people had been injured in clashes next to the palace, according to the state news agency. So here we are, all of this turmoil, all of this boiling over in the Middle East, this pot of water that's been boiling and heating up over the past few months, now overflowing in places like Egypt, Iran, waiting for that Pearl Harbor moment. Of course, Pearl Harbor sanctions have already been implemented against Iran. This has caused chaos for the Iranian people, the Iranian economy. So expect war. Expect retaliation. The United States is going to get exactly what it's asking for here, America. And that's what we need to better understand. Just like we put sanctions on Japan, and 6 months later they attacked Pearl Harbor, Honolulu, and sunk our ships. Expect retaliation. This is exactly what has been planned, and it's exactly why the United States is inciting this civil unrest and is inciting this violence overseas. This is a part of the sovereign debt takeover. Aggregate the debt in Europe, get people like German Chancellor Angela Merkel to help promote this fake stability, aggregate the debt from all these defunct nations around the world, and then burn it to the ground by use of a massive smoke screen in the next world war. This is what we have coming to the world. This is not a movie. This isn't a Shakespearean play. No, maybe we can use reference to it. It's the tragedy and the comedy that Shakespeare spoke of so many times in all of his brilliant work. But this is for real. This is what's coming. These protests are just early warning signs, firing shots of what's to come. Not just protests and civil unrest boiling over in the Middle East, but I'm talking about here at home, on our own streets. As unemployment benefits and Social Security suddenly becomes extinguished, and the people can't eat, and the 45 million plus people on food stamps no longer have daily sustenance and begin to go mad. And this becomes a Mad Max world, all because of debt, all because of greed, all because this is the game plan. And that's what we need to understand, is when the chaos really ignites. Remember, the gasoline hasn't already been poured. We're just waiting for the match to be lit, and the match has already been lit overseas. It's coming here to the United States. This is an aggressive, wild forest fire out of control. I'm going to be taking your calls when we get back. I'm Christopher Green, hard-hitting and in your face, Green Wave Radio, live. Words here today. It says NATO votes to deploy Patriot missiles on the Turkey-Syria border. Now, this stuff it doesn't blow my mind. I was wanting to say that, but it doesn't blow my mind because, of course, it's all part of the program. I mean, we've been expecting this. It's almost kind of funny how predictable it is. But I've got these pictures here I'm looking at. It says soldiers of the Air Defense Missile Squadron 2 walking past Patriot missile launchers in the background. NATO foreign ministers have voted to approve a request for Patriot missiles to be deployed on the Turkey-Syria border. They requested the deployment over fears that Syria could attack with missiles and chemical weapons. I always think this is great. You know, how they position Syria like as the aggressor, like, oh my God, Syria might use missiles and chemical warfare on us. When it's actually, in actuality, it's the United States attacking Syria. It's the United States arming the Syrian rebels. It's President Barack Obama with a hit on the life of Bashar al-Assad. I mean, these people are just defending themselves, and they haven't even done anything yet. Now, I'm not endorsing these people. I'm not saying Bashar al-Assad's a good guy. I've never said he was. I never said that Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi was a good man. And, you know, I stand by Muammar Gaddafi or anything like that. But let's get the facts straight. The United States, through the global power structure, through the messenger of a socialist tyrant in the name of President Barack Obama, are the aggressors, are the ones striking, interfering, and attacking and engaging these parts of the world. Not the other way around. Not the other way around. It's not like Syria is over here in the United States bombing us. It's not like Muammar Gaddafi, before Obama assassinated him, was blowing up buildings here in the U.S. None of this was happening. This is an attack, a unilateral strike by the West, by Israel, by the United States that's destabilizing this region. This is what they want. So any kind of retaliation that happens, unfortunately, any kind of retaliatory effort is just an act of self-defense. Let's get the facts straight here. Now, I'm not a fan of Syria necessarily. I'm not, here defending Syria. But let's get the facts straight. Anything that happens going forward is retaliation, an act of self-defense. That's exactly what it is. So if a building blows up, a suitcase bomb takes out an American city, and it's Syria or one of these countries that do it, they're just retaliating to what's happening in their own home country. That's what the United States is doing over there. And it's funny, Americans just write this off as no biggie, no big deal. Let's just go and destroy this part of the world. Now, officials from the 28-member alliance meeting in Brussels have said that the U.S.-made missiles will be for purely defensive purposes. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. NATO's position is clear. Any deployment would be to protect Turkey. It would be purely defensive in nature. It will in no way support a no-fly zone or any offensive operation. Propaganda, bullshit, propaganda, bullshit. This was from NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen said in a statement, I believe that the deployment of Patriot missiles will serve as an effective deterrence and therefore de-escalate the situation along the Syrian-Turkish border. That's just kind of how I picture these people talk. You know, they go on camera and they're like, hi, I believe that the deployment of Patriot missiles will serve as an effective and deterrent and therefore de-escalate the situation along the Syrian-Turkish border. I used to work with a lot of these people in corporate America, you know, just bold-faced liars like, hi, Christopher, how you doing? I make a living raping the American public. Yes, I'm a hedge fund manager. I like destroying American lives so I can drive a Ferrari. That's what I do for a living. Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, nice to meet you, you freaking idiot. You know, go back to where you came from, wherever that is. Cracking myself up today. So, you know, of course, this is all boiling over in the Middle East, and it is very scary that we're teetering in this position right now. And, of course, it's the American people that are going to pay the price for this. It's going to be you, your family, yourself, your kids, your sons, your daughters asked to die on the front lines to defend President Barack Obama wants to do on behalf of the global oligarchs in these parts of the world. Let's go to a call here. We do have our phone lines open, 218-339-8525, 218-339-8525. I'm going to go to a 325 area code, 325. Hi, you're on the air. What's on your mind? Can you hear me, my friend? We've got you on the air live. Do you have a question or comment for us? All right, we've got somebody a little shy there. We'll see if we can reconnect. All my producers take a look at that, make sure all the call systems are working here. So back to that in a moment. Story after story, freedom or we die. Protesters break through police lines. Morsi flees palace. I was reading another really interesting email. I wanted to share this to you. This was sent to a friend from a friend of mine. Just boot this up here and bring it up. It'll give you an idea of the impact of all this legislation being forced by the president at this very moment and how tyrannical it really is. Let me see if I can find this. I know I had this somewhere here today. Let me go here, search this inbox. Let's see. All right, I'm going to have to do a better search criteria of this here. Let me see. This is I'm cycling through thousands of emails. Not the easiest thing to do. All right, I'm going to have somebody help me find. Okay, here it is. There we go. Okay, this was a letter from Hobby Lobby Stores CEO by David Green, no relation, the founder and CEO of Hobby Lobby Stores. This will give you an idea of what's going on in America today. When my family and I, this is from him, this is from by David Green, no relation, says, when my family and I started our company 40 years ago, we were working out of a garage on a $600 bank loan, assembling miniature picture frames. Our first retail store wasn't much bigger than most people's living rooms, but we had faith that we would succeed if we lived and worked according to God's word. From there, Hobby Lobby, and these are devout Christians, has become one of the nation's largest arts and crafts retailers with more than 500 locations in 41 states. Now remember, the United States of America was established and founded on religious freedom. I might just have to remind some of us of that at times. Now it says here, our children grew up and defined business leaders, and today we run Hobby Lobby together as a family. So they have this family business. We are Christians, and we run our business on Christian principles. I've said that the first two goals of our business are to run our business in harmony with God's laws and to focus on people more than money. And that's what we try to do. We close early so our employees can see their families at night. We keep our stores closed on Sundays, one of the week's biggest shopping days, so that our workers and their families can enjoy a day of rest. We believe it is by God's grace that Hobby Lobby has endured, and he has blessed us and our employees. We have not only added jobs and a weak economy, but we've raised wages for the past 4 years in a row. Our full-time employees start at 80% above minimum wage. Sounds like a pretty good job. But now it says our government threatens to change all of that. And this is from the CEO of this company. And whether or not you're Christian or not, or that's your religious faith, doesn't matter. Just keep in mind the United States of America was founded on religious freedom. That's why people fled here on ships, and many people died, and 1 in 10 survived the treacherous journey from Europe to get here. Okay, I mean, this is about what the country was founded on. Back to the letter. It says, but now our government threatens to change all of that. A new government health care mandate says that our family business must provide what I believe are abortion-causing drugs as part of our health insurance. Of course, we've all been reading about this, covering this, reporting on this. Being Christians, we don't pay for drugs that might cause abortions. It's part of these people's religious belief, which means, a lot of people's beliefs, which means that we don't cover emergency contraception, the morning after pill or the week after pill. We believe so might end a life after the moment of conception, something that is contrary to our most important beliefs. It goes against the biblical principles on which we have run this company since day one. If we refuse to comply, we could face $1.3 million per day in government fines. Now, I'm reading you an email here for those of you just jumping into this program. This was sent to me by a friend. Our government threatens to fine job creators in a bad economy. It says our government threatens to fine a company that's raised wages 4 years running. Our government threatens to fine a family for running its business according to its beliefs. It's not right. I know people will say we ought to follow the rules, that it's the same for everybody, but that's not true. The government has exempted thousands of companies from this mandate for reasons of convenience or cost, but it won't exempt them for reasons of religious belief. So Hobby Lobby, the company I'm referring to, and this person's family are forced to make a choice. With great reluctance, we filed a lawsuit today, represented by the Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty, asking a federal court to stop this mandate before it hurts our business. We don't like to go running into court, but we no longer have a choice. We believe people are more important than the bottom line, and that honoring God is more important than turning a profit. My family has lived the American dream. We want to continue growing our company and providing great jobs for thousands of employees. But the government is going to make that much more difficult. The government is forcing Hobby Lobby and forcing this company to choose between following their faith and following the law. I say that that's a choice no American and no American business should have to make. The government cannot force you to follow laws that go against your fundamental religious belief. They've exempted thousands of companies but will not exempt Christian organizations, including the Catholic Church. It says, since you will not see this covered in any of the liberal media, pass this on to all your contacts. Sincerely, David Green, CEO and founder of Hobby Lobby Stores. Now, no relation to this David. It's just a coincidence, the same last name. But this is a letter I thought was really interesting, sent to me by a friend, and a perfect example of how Americans are being forced. This is what this gentleman, David, has wrong. He says the government cannot force you to follow laws that go against your fundamental religious belief. Well, they're not supposed to. Just like they're not supposed to bypass Congress when they start bombing Libya. But they are. This is what we're dealing with in the United States of America. So a country founded on the principles of a constitutional republic, of, separation of church and state, religious freedom, freedom of the press, all of these things we talk about on a daily basis, is contrary to how our country is being governed today. Companies are being forced to compromise their belief systems, their fundamental religious beliefs, and it's wrong. I just wanted to throw that out there today. I thought that was a very important email. And maybe get your thoughts on that in the chat or give us a call. We're working on making sure those phone lines are back up and working. Of course, I've got Vinny Eastwood of the Vinny Eastwood Show coming up next at the top of the hour. I'm looking forward to that. As we approach the holiday season, this is a wonderful, cheery time. And actually, I'm not even being facetious there. It is a wonderful, cheery time. It is a time that we need to be thankful. It is a time when we need to give a helping hand to those that are less fortunate than us. And in fact, somebody sent me an email the other day, said that they bought some strangers that they didn't even know $150 worth of groceries. And that was their way of kind of giving back and paying tribute back to the community. I think that's so awesome. I think that's wonderful when I hear things like that. So this is a time of thanks. This is a time of thinking about all this, but it's perverse and it's almost comical how America is such a commercialized beast. And that's all that Christmas and the holidays has really become for a lot of people. And it's really sad. It's about the presents that you're going to get. It's about, we see all the car commercials with the bows on the cars. Like, here's your new car. This is going to bring, holiday cheer to your family member. Get your wife a brand new Lexus, before the year is up. And wish her a Merry Christmas. And, there's nothing wrong with giving gifts. And, if you've got the means to do it, fine. Do whatever you want to do. But what I find perverse, and I think a lot of us find perverse in our society, is how the commercialization of America has overtaken common sense and has overtaken really the common good. And it's kind of raped humanity in a lot of respects. And I find it incredibly sad. It was something I was speaking to quite heartfelt in my video I posted late last evening. It just puts things into perspective, and it puts into perspective what matters most. And that's what I want us all to think about. And this is what I'm thinking about as we close out the year. What matters to me? What is most important to you? Is it your family? Is it your friends? Is it your loved ones? As we approach the end of the year, and I'm reading all these stories. In fact, I'm reading one now. I caught this late last evening. It says, cops to Congress. We need logs of Americans' text messages. Now, I want you to think about this. Think about all the hundreds, thousands of texts that you personally send to friends and family. Okay, you do this annually. Think about all the information that's exchanged. Think about all that you put out there that you think is confidential, that you think is private, that you think won't be dug up by Homeland Security or what the cops are asking from Congress right now. In fact, I'm asking, why even ask? They don't ask about anything else. Why not just do what they need to do, right? I mean, which has been what has been happening. They can already do this anyways through the Patriot Act and this type of legislation. If they call you a terrorist, they can already get this kind of data. They can already get this kind of information. This is why you're, of course, being data mined on a daily basis. But it's actually a positive that this is being spoken of and talked about more and more, that I'm seeing more mainstream articles. This one here is from CNET. It says, cops to Congress. We need logs of Americans' text messages. State and local law enforcement groups want wireless providers to store detailed information about your SMS messages for at least 2 years in case they're needed for future criminal investigations. Now, the various service providers, all, at least up to this point, handle this differently. AT&T, Verizon Wireless, Sprint, and other wireless providers would be required to record and store information about Americans' private text messages for at least 2 years, according to a proposal the police have submitted to the U.S. Congress. CNET has learned a constellation of law enforcement groups has asked the U.S. Senate to require that wireless companies retain that information, warning that the lack of a current federal requirement can hinder law enforcement investigations. They want an SMS retention requirement to be considered during congressional discussions over updating a 1986 privacy law for the cloud computing era. Now, of course, we're all part of the era, and I'm sure a lot of you are already using this. In fact, if you own Apple products or you have Google accounts, a lot of this is cloud-based storage. This is, of course, even how YouTube videos are stored. They are stored on YouTube's and Google's cloud. But now people are moving to their personal data, their business data. They're using services, whether or not it's Amazon or the Amazon equivalent, to store their data. Now, it says a move that could complicate the debate the debate over the measure and erode support for it among civil libertarians. Now, as the popularity of text messages has exploded in recent years, so has their use in criminal investigations and civil lawsuits. They have been introduced as evidence in armed robbery, cocaine distribution, and wire fraud prosecutions. In one 2009 case in Michigan, wireless provider SkyTel turned over the contents of 626,000 SM messages, a figure described by a federal judge as staggering. So they want your personal information. Not only are they tracking, data mining what you're doing over the internet, what you're doing searching Google and the equivalent search engines, Bing.com, Yahoo.com, whatever it might be, your internet search history, which websites you might be visiting, what porn you might be looking at, or whatever you're doing. Not only are they data mining that, using it to incriminate you, using it to basically, strong arm you, but now they're going after text messages. So a direct violation of another freedom. This is all about control. This has been the direction we're going for years, and it's really just coming into the framework of the minds of the American people and the people of the world now, because they see how integrated these systems are. They see how integrated this technology is. The Facebook, the Twitters, the LinkedIn, the Google Pluses, etc. How it's overtaken us. In fact, I'm even reading stories. I read a story out of South Korea the other day talking about internet addiction. Where preteens, they're finding, are addicted to the internet, that they can't get off their handhelds. They go to bed at night reading their iPad, iPod, Apple, Google, Nexus, or equivalent device, and they wake up that way and they can't get off. They're sending hundreds, if not thousands, of text messages a day. It's changing brain waves. It's changing how the brain functions. We're seeing most of this in children. I mean, think about this. This is a form of child abuse. Parents for years have, worried about television programming. They've worried about how that's affecting brain chemistry, et cetera, which we know from studies, has grave effects on the human brain. But how are all these new devices? How is all this social media changing the way we think, and more importantly, the way we behave? A lot of people have argued it's made a lot more people more antisocial. In fact, that's almost been kind of a strange twist in all of this, is that now the new internet millionaire, all these people are just extremely antisocial, introverted people that develop these cool apps or whatnot, become overnight millionaires, if not, 100 millionaires or billionaires like Mark Zuckerberg. So it's really interesting where all this is going. And, of course, it's a direct violation of the freedoms that we need to protect at all costs. I wanted to dig into this a little bit today, too, and I spoke about this, and this story just really angered me, and just what a sad story. But I hate how it's been propagandized by the mainstream media, and that's why I did some commentary on it. But Belcher, the former Chiefs linebacker, Jovan Belcher, and, people said, Chris, you shouldn't have gone after him that hard. He could have been pushed to the limit. Stories are going to come out that he was a good guy, blah, blah, blah. Well, contrary to that, I'm seeing a new report today from the New York Post saying that Belcher, before he killed his girlfriend, spent a night with his gal pal before killing. So supposedly it looks like he had another girlfriend. Of course, he shot Cassandra Perkins multiple times. It killed her in front of his mother and then ended up killing himself. And it's just so sad. This is what America glorifies. It's the Lindsay Lohan, and we hold these these NFL stars up on a pedestal because we glorify violence in this country. It's what we love. And there's been a lot of talk about, gun confiscation. Obviously, we've talked about this incessantly, just over the past few months, even in the past few years. But, everyone wants our guns now because they say, people like Belcher are insane and they're going to go kill their girlfriends. And, if there weren't handguns, then, these kinds of tragedies wouldn't happen. Well, this is just all a part of the propaganda campaign, courtesy of President Barack Obama, that wants your weapons. They want to take your guns away from you. And it just, pisses me off. Also read a report today said Obama says America is poised to take off. What a joke. What a joke. Says in an interview with Bloomberg's Juliana Goldman, President Barack Obama stated, I think America is poised to take off. The main obstacle in Obama's mind, however, is political dysfunction. That's the obstacle. He says, we're staying pretty strong consumer confidence
Despite weakness in Europe and even in Asia, I think America is poised to take off. And the question is, let's make sure what we don't have is a self-inflicted wound, because there is a lot of silly games played up on Capitol Hill, Obama told Goldman. What an idiot. I hate this guy. I really do. At least I hate his politics. Maybe not the person individually, but I definitely hate his politics. Of course, this is at a time when we're approaching the fiscal cliff, which is another fabricated event supposed to get our panties in a bunch. Like, oh, politicians, what are you going to do to save us? We're going off the Thelma and Louise fiscal cliff. Are you gonna do something? And then Obama can like rein in there and be like, oh, we raised the debt ceiling into infinity. Me and Timmy Geithner have lifted it. We can now spend as much money as we've ever dreamed of, trillions and trillions of dollars. And they'll talk about how this is good for the country, that, you know, an extra gazillion, billion, trillion, blah, billion, dollars printed at the printing presses of the Federal Reserve is somehow bringing wealth to our nation. Like, hey, just go print those dollars, Ben Bernanke. It's going to create wealth. No, it doesn't create wealth. What it does is it destroys the value of our currency, which is backed by nothing, which is created out of thin air. That is soon, if people don't realize it, a worthless piece of paper, not worth the paper it's printed on. That's exactly what we have in the country today, and it's exactly why there's been such a intense flight and flock to precious metals, gold, silver, palladium, platinum, anything really. Just buy something tangible. It's a freaking frenzy, America. Get your hands on anything that isn't just paper. It'll be worth more than the bills in your pocket. This has been proven time and time again throughout history. So all of these confluence of events, whether or not it's violent stories and murder, suicides by, Kansas City linebackers like Jovan Belcher killing his girlfriend and losing his mind, and then the mainstream media blaming it on concussions or painkillers or alcohol abuse or guns, whatever that they pick. Or this is the Middle East boiling over into another very violent, bloody, destabilizing revolution, an act of civil disobedience, something that has not been put to rest since the 2008 collapse. And we continue to see, not just in the Middle East, but here in the United States at home, expected only to intensify. Whether or not these are the scandals, the Petraeus scandals, where he's taken down and character assassinated by the Obama administration and the Democrats to cover up Benghazi Gate and the running and trafficking of guns, all illegal, impeachable offenses that should send these people, everybody, including our president, everyone in prison. You can't make this stuff up, America. I've got Benny Eastwood coming on in just a few minutes after this break. Stay tuned. I'm Christopher Green, Greenwave Radio, live. We're talking about the Middle Eastern boiling over breakdown, Mohammed Morsi pretty much being ousted from the presidential palace at this very moment. The people just in complete uproar, saying, get out, Muslim Brotherhood. We don't want you. Of course, this is the same part of the world that was overthrown. Mubarak, as people like to call him, was overthrown courtesy of the United States. And it's just interesting to see this confluence of events as we approach the end of the year. And what a lot of people, we've been talking about these theories, think could be the end of the world. Vinny, good to see you, my friend. I see you're on the line with us.
Oh, yeah.
So what are your thoughts, Vinny? Could this potentially be the end of the world? And what do you think is the most credible theory that you've heard so far?
Well, Chris, I've been alive 27 years, and the world's supposed to have ended like 5 times or something like that. I remember when I was a teenager at home on Waiheke Island, and Mum was saying that there's some prediction about the end of the world, and we're going to have a nice lamb dinner, and if it is the end, blah, 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 it'll be fine. None of us really believed it would be the end, and sure enough, it wasn't. So, if you want to think about 2012, all right, so we're living in 2012. My New Year's resolution was 2012, time to stop fracking around. And sure enough, this year, I've been franking around less and less and less and doing more and more and more to produce a better world. So, in essence, my original world, which was the sitting around going to work and associating with other tenets of scumbaggery and what have you working in the corporate structure, that world is over for me. And in a way, your world, depending on what you learn on a daily basis, always is coming to an end in some way, shape, or form. You know, nothing lasts forever. So let's talk about some of the theories now. There's three working theories, really. One being the prophesized return of the destroyer, the volcanoes, the tsunamis, the earthquakes, the pole shifts and disaster, etc. A celestial event. Apparently, we go round this Milky Way once every 1,000 years. And apparently, once it comes round to a certain point when everything's in alignment, everything goes all haywire. Right. It's not entirely dissimilar from how you look at a clock and you think, man, as soon as those two hands are lined up at midday, the world's going to end. No, it just keeps going round. That's how the Mayan calendar is structured. It's in a circle. Okay? It doesn't actually have an end. Once you come to the end of a circle, it just keeps going round again.
I mean,
people don't understand this. I mean, it's simple geometry.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, kind of funny how people, you know, I really believe people manifest their own destiny, or they manifest what they're thinking about or become what they think about. I mean, let's face facts, Vinny. I mean, yeah, you know, it is funny. We make fun of it. It is comical how, you know, it's been the end of the world multiple times over the past few years. But, you know, the world will end at some point. At least the planet will. Planet Earth will end, but then something new will be born, and, you know, new planets and Earths and stars will be created. And it's just interesting how people, I guess,
These are processes that take billions of years. So the fact that we're worried about the end of the world happening for them right now, when it takes billions of years to build or create or destroy or whatever, you know, is laughable. But there's another couple of other theories I wanted to postulate first before we kind of continue into a discussion about this. So we go at the first one, which is the end of the world. Second one is it's all a massive psyop being perpetrated by scumbaggery individuals in the New World Order power structure or whatever, and the objective is to get everybody so afraid at the end of the world that they won't try and stop them implementing all their agendas, which are going to end freedom and a free human race as we know it.
Yeah.
The last one is the part of what the Mayans called the entering of the fifth age. And I'm not 100% sure exactly what that means, but the reference card is we currently live in a world full of lies, a world full of materialism, a world full of scumbaggery. And what the fifth age will do is essentially bring in a new age of people actually giving a frack about each other, people having more open hearts, more open minds, and we will endure a golden age of humanity rather than a dark age. Now, the word apocalypse means the revealing of great truth. And this fifth dimension thing, I'm not 100% sure what they're talking about of the fifth age. I wondered whether or not it had something to do with, you know, how we've got dimensions, you know, one dimension being a straight line because it's just, you know, width or depth or something like that. 2D has got width and height. 3D, width, height, and depth. 4D is the 3D object traveling through time. And 5D transcends all of those. So you're no longer of the physical universe, and you're no longer within the universe that's controlled by a time. And some people believe that this will be a physical manifestation, and those who are ready and those who wish to kind of harness that power, the ability to see through time, see the future, see the past, and see the present all congruent together, and increase psychic potential and what have you. Now, I like that idea, but at the end of the day, I think about this like I think about many other things. Until it's right there in front of me, it ain't a fact yet. And if somebody's going to tell me to be afraid or be excited about something that hasn't happened yet, I'm sorry. I can be afraid of the things that are right in front of me that I will do something about. and I will be happy about the things that I'm doing every single day. The end of the world matters not for me, because I've had a happy life.
Vinny, can you hear me? Am I coming through?
Yes, you are.
This is what I was thinking of. I wanted to interject, so I'll interject now. Is how do we not, okay, the dawn of a new age, a new era, an elevated human consciousness. I think all this is kind of happening. I mean, and I do see a lot of great, good, positive things that can come from these changes that we're all experiencing right now. Just the change in the way people think, the way people are viewing the world, the way that we're, more globally integrated. There's a lot of changes, but on the dark side of things, how will there not be massive death in the very near future? There is too many people on the planet, not enough resources, and way too many bodies. How do we not have war? How do we not have disease? How do we not have another major plague eradicate millions of people around the world? I mean, are we just going to scientifically break through those obstacles and overcome that for a better future? It's a possibility, but I just see a reversion to the mean. I can't help but see a reversion to that base. And in order for that to happen, it means a lot of people are going to die as a result. I realize it's a very dark way of looking at it, but is that reality, or is that just being the negative Nelly?
Well, I don't know. It depends whether or not you fear death.
Well, I don't know if it necessarily is a question of fearing death or not, or embracing death.
Oh, no. There is a point to this, because if you're afraid of something, what happens to your brain? It shuts down, and it engages the reptilian brain, the lower cortex here, which provokes your fight or flight mechanism and prohibits thought of an intellectual or reasonable capacity. That's what I believe is one of the whether or not it's an agenda, it's certainly happening. There's fear out there, and people aren't thinking. Like you said, people were, like, look at it this way. NASA says it's not the end of the world. When was the last time people were stupid enough to trust what NASA says? And you're telling me how a bunch of teenagers, mostly, were emailing NASA because they're all freaked out and they want to commit suicide and what have you. See, these are people who obviously aren't doing any thinking.
Well, they're not going to tell us if it's the end of the world anyways. I mean, honestly.
Exactly. It would promote chaos, NASA announces the end of the fracking world. Right. They're going to do that. That's why you emailed them, to get an honest response, right?
Trust NASA. So let me ask you this then, Vinny. Let's get into this, because I think it's funny how people are always living for the future. I mean, the great majority are always planning, prepping, preparing, saving for the future. Someday I'm going to have enough money to really live the life that I want to live. Or, they're always looking towards something, building towards something better. And how many of us are really living in the present? So the question I want to pose is, what if it was absolute certainty that the world was coming to an end? Let's just take that as a fact. We've got until December 21st, and then all planetary life is extinguished. How would that change you living in the present today, and what would you do differently knowing you had only a few weeks left to live?
Chris, I'd actually just keep doing this job, because I'm having the best time of my life, and I'd rather die having the best time of my life than die afraid alone, because I'm always talking with other people who are really cool, who are inspiring, who teach me things, and there's a back and forth process there too. What would I be doing? Nothing different. I am, on the other hand, having a December 21st party, and inviting many activists and friends and confidants and things around, and we're all going to get wasted together. And if it is the end of the world, sweet. I wouldn't want to end the world in any other way than have a big shindig. You know what I'm saying? With all the people that you love, who are cool, who you've known throughout your lives. I mean, it'd just be like going to heaven, wouldn't it? Suddenly all your old friends are there, and you feel all ethereal and happy and stuff like that from the acid and ecstasy. That's a great way to do it. However, the other perspective is, have you ever heard of the White Hat Society? You know, this or Drake or whatever, and these people came out saying they're going to arrest all the banksters, and they've got people working in the DOD and CIA and NSA and all the alphabet agencies and what have you, and they're going to concoct this mass arrest thing, and suddenly all the bankers are going to be gone, and suddenly we'll all have our freedoms reinstated, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And a whole bunch of people were going, oh man, that's cool. I now don't have to do anything because somebody else is going to solve all my fracking problems for me.
That sounds
no fracking way. It ain't over till the fat lady sings. And the way I see it, she ain't even clearing her throat yet.
Yeah. Well, I guess, I'm just thinking about, I'm listening to what you're saying. Think about what we're facing, though. I mean, honestly, Vinny, if I'm the power structure that runs the world, I'm just going to shut you off, man. Seriously, I'm going to shut you off, shut me off. I'll kill you if I have to. I'm speaking metaphorically there, obviously. But from the perspective of the power structure itself, if the people are going to threaten their sovereignty and power and control over the world, these people are a million gazillion times more powerful than you and me. So why don't they just get rid of us?
A lot of people have been saying that. And, I've got no answer. People say, oh, why hasn't David Icke been gotten rid of? Why hasn't this person been gotten rid of? They're talking about truth and conspiracy and blah, 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 blah. Yet they don't get killed. I have no idea. When I have a look at the people who get assassinated, they're usually right in the middle of it. Right in the middle of it all, whistleblowers, presidents, analysts that have been in the operations who are going to come out and expose great truth and what have you, because they're actually friends and colleagues of the people that wind up killing them. In this field, Chris, how many of our listeners and our friends and colleagues do you think are likely to don a black uniform and come into our house and exterminate us? None of them.
Yeah, sure.
I wonder we haven't been killed yet.
A very fragile thing. I mean, look, even if you're just, you're not in the spotlight and you're not in the wrong place at the right time or vice versa. I mean, you could just be killed in a car accident. You just go out and all of a sudden you're driving, you're dead. I mean, that's how life is. Well, people forget how fragile things really are. So maybe in a way it's healthy to have a perspective on the end of the world. And, people are going to throw parties and I guess kind of enjoy themselves and get together with family and friends. I see that as good things. I just can't help but see. Maybe I'm a little bit of a masochist. I can't help but see massive death and a lot of problems and the implementation of the police state and all these things in the very near future. I mean, at some point in our lifetime, Vinny, if we make it through the end of the year here, 2012, there will be a point in human history while we're alive where a major city somewhere in the world is extinguished, gets nuked. We wake up, Paris is gone, D.C. is gone, New York City is gone. It's going to change the world. At that point, the people will be begging for controls, begging for government assistance, begging for the police state, begging for martial law. I just see this being served up on a silver platter, and it's so easy and also so predictable.
Yeah, well, again, there's nothing celestial or cosmic going on there. That's just the stated and admitted agendas of the scumbaggery element within society that we call the New World Order. So that was why my perspective on the 2012 thing was mostly leaning towards the fact that it's a psyop and everybody's afraid of the end of the world. And while they're afraid of the end of the world, they're not thinking about the people who are planning the end of your life and society and to exterminate you and all of that kind of stuff. And speaking of extermination and genocide, with these two people recently, like Chris, you remember last time I was on and I broke down the Israel-Palestine conflict and everything for you in quite a succinct fashion. Okay, yeah, look, Jew haters, as I like to call them, don't listen to my show, okay? And then they come on my Facebook or on YouTube or something like that and accuse me of being a Jew lover and this sort of thing. And it's absolutely on the one hand it's really hilarious, but on the other hand it's really, really irritating because I've if you just search Israel on my YouTube channel or Vinny Eastwood Israel on Google or anything like that, you will come up with umpteen different archives and huge quantities of protests against it and da-da-da-da-da. Even a minimal amount of thought process and clicking on a fracking mouse would kind of bring you into the fold, at least a little bit, with the reality of the situation, you know, and who I really am and what I really think and what I really do. However, these people don't do that. You listen to Greenwave Radio Live with your host Christopher Green. I'm Vinny Eastwood, and we'll be right back after the break. You can check us out at greenwave.com/live-chat-room/ and join on the other listeners there. Back in a minute with Christopher Green and Vinny Eastwood. To Greenwave Radio Live with your host Christopher Green from greenwave.com. Chris, welcome back to your own show.
Appreciate that, Vinny. You know, I think you almost intro better than me. We're gonna fill you in, have all the intros and outro.
Well, it's just there's some kind of technical thing that I really don't like it, because it always cuts you off, like before the breaks and after the breaks and stuff like that. So I thought I don't know. I see problems and I try and solve them. That's what I do.
You're a problem solver. This is, good. It's a good attribute to have. So we're breaking down the end of the world, or the lack thereof. Talking about all the theories, talking about, okay, it could be a government-run psyop. And my question to that would be, well, what isn't a psyop? But here's what I'm noticing, I'm finding interesting about this end of 2012 Mayan prophecy thing is I haven't really seen the mainstream media put too much information out on it. It's almost like we're not getting any information on the end of the world. It's almost making me more suspicious. I mean, if you would have asked me 12 months ago, I would have said this would be the biggest story, especially as we approach the end of the year, where there'd be tons of videos, content, movies, books, articles, all written on this. And I have yet to really seen anything on the subject up to the same level as what we saw with Y2K, for example. We saw there was a statement released by NASA. You mentioned that. We were talking about that a little bit, but I really haven't heard a whole lot. I'm quite frankly a little suspicious. What are your thoughts?
Well, the New World Order is very, very adept at omission, and they're also very adept at timing. So, I wonder what they're trying to hide off here. I remember what Lindsey Williams told me. He says that the American people are not going to have a revolution. They're going to belly up. They're too fat, too stupid, too brainwashed. It's just that simple. There's plenty that aren't, but they're not enough to lead all the rest of them in a demagogue-type fashion. So he also said that that's exactly how the New World Order wants it. A peaceful, calm transition into the New World Order. And they don't want people to be rioting in the streets. They don't want that kind of chaos. They just kind of wanted to... basically, I think they don't really want chaos. They keep saying that they want to create crises and then come and propose the solutions. But the thing is, their main objective is to propose a solution. Their solution, not create the chaos. The chaos is just a pretext. So, it's a confusing one. But ultimately, my three favorite words are, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And my three most hated words are, I don't care. You ever try to tell somebody something that you think might be important or worthy of note or mention, and they say, oh, I don't care. I hate that.
Yeah, me too. People say all the time, I'll talk to them about what's going on in the Middle East or Syria or Libya or one of these places. They'll be like, I don't care. Nuke the Middle East is what most of them will tell me. They don't care if we wipe it off the map. Honestly.
Now, has any single one of those people ever been to the Middle East?
99% of them, no.
Yeah. And the 1% that have been there who want to nuke it, let me guess. Veterans on psychotropic drugs that drive them nuts?
More than possibly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just basically, it works like this. You, Chris, you're a smart guy, and you at least have some inkling of what's going on. You don't know the whole story, neither do I. And anybody who does say that they know everything that's going on is probably a crazy person who thinks that they're Jesus reincarnated or something. But here's the point. We are more powerful than those people who don't care. You know why? Because we don't know, but we want to. And that is the motivation in and of itself. We're people who have motivation, we're people who actually care, and as a direct result, we have more of an effect on the planet. People who want to know and people who do care are far more powerful than all of those other people who don't want to know and do not care. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, no, I would. And I was thinking about how you were saying, the power structure wants a seamless transition, right? I mean, whether or not we want to call it the New World Order or something else, they don't want necessary chaos all the time. I mean, they might create chaos to help move us a certain direction and kind of orchestrate these events to, push it to the end goal. But Americans really are fat and happy, literally fat and happy. I mean, literally, we were kind of joking about it over the break, fat and happy. So, when people like Lindsey Williams say there won't be a revolution in America, I don't know whether or not he's right or not. I would like to think that the American people aren't so fat and happy, that the growing minority, it's always the minority too. All you need is a minority. That's what ignites, starts, and, finishes revolutions, not the majority. The great majority are fat and complacent, right? But I don't know. It's just an interesting way of looking at it. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with Lindsey Williams? Is America so fat and happy that there will be no revolution and they'll just gladly, with open arms, accept the New World Order and just, that's it?
When a revolution is about to happen, there are, at least in the American Revolution, pamphleteers everywhere and people absorbing the knowledge of the tyranny of the king. Everywhere. You'd have a single pamphlet that would be read 200 times. In other revolutions in say, India, for example, you had large crowds, waves of protest. You had, and this was happening in all different sectors all over the place. In Venezuela, it was much the same thing. Huge rigmarole, massive amounts of public interest. In the United States, I don't know the statistics on this, but I would guess that the amount of voter turnout for the U.S. elections is dwarfed by the amount of voter turnout of American Idol.
Mm-hmm.
When you're driving around, how many people with a 9/11 was an inside job banner do you see? How many people with a End the Fed banner? How many people with a Stop Agenda 21, Codex Alimentarius, Defeat the New World Order, Expose the Rockefellers, Expose Scumbaggery? How many of those signs do you see? Well, how many signs of those do I see when I'm driving around and what have you? And the answer is none. Usually I'm the one. With maybe a few other people that I've personally organized to be there with those signs. So there's no public upheaval. It's a private, small clique upheaval, which is generally all you need, really. But everybody wants the masses to awaken. And I don't know about you, but I think it's more like triage on the battlefield. These people are so dumb, so fat, so sick, so incompetent that they're dead already, and you cannot save them. Stop wasting your time trying to wake up people who will not get out of bed.
So are these
Instead, spend your time trying to help those people who are already awake achieve more. Priorities.
I agree with you. I think it's a perverse way to look at it, but I think there's a tremendous amount of truth in it. I mean, we literally have large segments of the population that are literally dead in a lot of respects. I mean, we're talking real life zombies, totally controlled, manipulated from an early age through television, media, all forms of entertainment. Literal brain chemistry has been changed. I mean, you can read, studies on this stuff. And I talk about this a lot too. You probably do as well, Vinny. But especially the new technology we now have in our hands. People are addicted to the social media, Facebook, as you jokingly like to call it, Twitter, these kinds of things. I mean, addicted. iPads, iPods, Nanos, Google Nexus, whatever equivalents you might be using. Pre-teens, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, all go to restaurants, bookstores, outdoor malls. I'll go see the public, and literally a family of 4 will be sitting down with their 2 children, not a single one interacting with each other in a real fashion, having a conversation, but there'll be a small child playing Angry Birds, another one playing another game or widget, the dad reading a Kindle book, and the mom, I don't know, doing her taxes on the other device. I mean, no human interaction whatsoever, even while they're in the public. They're not just at home. I mean, how is this not insane? How is this not total manipulation and control of our entire society, and more importantly, I would say the way that we think and behave?
Well, I don't know about you, Chris, but I don't think anybody's really capable of forcing human beings to think in a certain way, like in terms of actual, real, implemented force. Think this way, think this way. The person will just act like they think that way, but in the reality inside their own head, they'll just be like, nah, this is BS. And that's how a lot of people are. And social media has become the new battleground, okay, more or less, in the war for people's hearts, essentially. It's not a war for the mind, it's a war for the heart, as far as I've come to conclude, is that you can keep learning such a thing that's going to exterminate you, vaccines or the Federal Reserve or Codex Alimentarius or Agenda 21 or whatever, until you're blue in the face. And that only clouds your judgment with more information. Isn't it interesting? Having more information stops you from taking action because it's not crossing the blood-brain barrier into the heart to a degree. If anything, you're just taking in things that you don't fully understand and are not willing to do anything about, and then hoping that just learning about how fracked you are is somehow going to unfrack your life. Yeah. I don't get that. And so I encourage people, and most people won't. Okay, if you're listening to this, and you listen to Chris or me every day or whatever, most of you that I'm speaking to right now will do very little to affect change. I know, and there's a number of reasons for this. A1, you're too comfortable. You think that sitting around and listening to other people talking about the truth somehow enlightens you as to what the truth is. It does to a degree, but the real truth is that action, not information, is what matters most. Somebody comes up to you and says, I've got better information than you. Give me your wallet. And you go, well, I've got a gun. You know what I'm saying? And the other element is people have a fear of becoming who they were meant to be. Right? Because it's a great risk. You've lived your entire life going through the education system, going through these various slave jobs, one after the other. And for some reason, you think that the misery that you're living in right now is relieved by listening to other people who've actually made it, who are not currently living in their misery, who are being who they were meant to be, and it feels inspiring. Yet, the second you stop listening to these types of people like Chris and myself and other members of the Truth Movement, you suddenly feel alone because you haven't taken steps to change your own life, to become who you were meant to be. A friend of mine is depressed, and he's a guitarist, a very good guitarist. And I asked him, bro, you're taking the medications, right? He's like, yeah. And they diagnosed you without showing you any blood tests or any actual information to confirm whether or not you had this disease, right? Yeah. So let me ask you something. If you were in front of 10,000 screaming fans with your guitar, chanting and clapping, would you still need those pills, mate? No. The only reason why you get depressed or demotivated is because you're not doing what you were meant to be doing. You're not being who you're supposed to be.
Well, it's interesting.
Risk everything. Risk everything. Quit your job. Mortgage your house. Whatever it takes. Do whatever it is that makes you happy and makes you sit right with the universe. And suddenly the universe backs you up. That's what I found. I stopped being the number one salesman at a company. I stopped making thousands of dollars a month. And I started living broke ass. I started going out making videos and doing radio and things like that, all for free, attending public meetings and finding and going to protests and all of that sort of stuff, and giving all the activists in New Zealand a chance to actually have a platform by which they could be broadcasted on, whereby their protest that only has 3 people to it, talking through megaphones to cars passing by who would only catch one word, would instead get seen thousands of times online. I saw a problem with the world around me, that the people who deserve the coverage are not getting it, so I took personal responsibility to make that happen. And every single day, I have been getting support from the other people who see what I'm doing and want me to keep doing it. You know what I'm saying? As soon as you start doing what you are meant to be doing, suddenly you don't have any problems paying bills or with depression or any stuff like that, because people just show up in droves in many different ways to support your ass. Which reminds me, please donate to the Vinnie Eastwood Show. Like today, go to the VinnieEastwoodShow.com. There's Vinnie with a Y because it's the most important question, and donate, because right now I'm broke. And yesterday I just asked, start donating, and people have started donating, right away. And this is what I'm talking about. I need I don't know, nearly $2,000 to make it through Christmas. That's if I'm actually going to have a nice Christmas and buy people presents. About $1,000 if I do nothing like that. But yeah, please help me if you can. And I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. You listen to the Green Wave Radio Show with Christopher Green and Vinnie Eastwood, and we'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, with your very special host, Christopher Green. I'm the guest, Vinnie Eastwood.
Hey, everybody. Christopher Green here, Green Wave Radio with Vinnie Eastwood. We're having a lot of fun today, approaching the end of the year, talking about the end of the world, geopolitics. You were talking about towards the end of our last break, Vinnie, talking about what it is you do, talking about how, the stars align when you stick with something you're passionate about, when you tend to risk everything and actually just follow your true life path, things tend to come together. And I can totally identify with that. I've found that in my own life and just my own personal journey. And what I found interesting is I asked the question, I posed it to you. I said, let's just say it was the end of the world, Vinnie. And I asked this, in the beginning of the show, how would that change what you're doing day to day? Now, what was really interesting about your response is that you said, well, nothing would change. I would just do what I'm doing, every day right now, because I love what I do. I love being a radio host. I love being an activist. I wouldn't change a thing, which is a awesome response. But here's what's interesting about it. 90%, 99% of most people out there would have not responded that way at all, because they don't really follow what they're passionate about. They don't really follow their true life path. Most of the people that I would ask or pose that question to would say, well, I wouldn't go to work. I wouldn't go to the office. I'd throw a party. I'd go do this. I'd get drunk. I'd do whatever. They want to do what it is they're doing on a day-to-day basis, and that says something about and puts into perspective. If you wouldn't do the same thing that you're doing now, even if you knew the world was coming to an end tomorrow, you're obviously not being honest with yourself, and you're not following your true passion. I think that there's something that beautiful could come from it, especially if more and more people catch on to it, which I think they are. If they just are willing to trust their instincts, trust themselves, and follow what it is they're meant to do, you cannot fail. You can only succeed. And there's so much truth to that. And I find it really inspiring as well.
Well, my friend Jonathan Eisen, who does these two magazines, the New Zealand Journal of Natural Medicine and Uncensored magazine. One time I gave him a ring. I was getting really depressed at my job. I was smoking weed every day because I just couldn't handle it. And And one day I was just thinking about quitting, and I gave him a ring, and I said to him, John, you know, I really hate what I'm doing. I'm thinking about quitting. And he says to me something that I think that, and this taught me one of the most important lessons that I've ever had in my life. He asked me a simple question. Is it right what you're doing? Would it feel right to quit? And I was saying, you know what? It would feel right to quit. So I did, and I've never turned back. And that's essentially the main lesson everybody needs to really take away from this. Are you doing the right thing? If you're not, stop doing what you're doing, whatever it is. No matter what your obligations are, nothing is more important than exposing scumbaggery and doing the right thing. Is there? You know? Name me one thing that's more important than doing the right thing.
Here's a little advice, too, and I find this common. Kind of a common theme, or I see a lot of people run into this trap. Don't think. Now, obviously, I want you to think about, you know, what's going on in the world and all these kinds of things. I want you to dig into the truth, investigate for yourself, etc. I promote that. All of us promote that within the freedom and liberty movement. But what I often find is people think too much. They just go with your gut. When I ask you a question, Vinny, what would you do if you knew it was the end of the world tomorrow? You're like, well, I wouldn't make any change. I wouldn't do anything. Go with your gut. Don't think about it. Don't give yourself all the reasons why you can't do this or you can't do that, or you know, there would be a speed bump to doing it that way, or you know, my family wouldn't approve of it, or how am I going to make money, or how is this going to work, or how would I pay my rent or my mortgage, etc. Don't think. Follow your gut, trust your instinct, and just go with that. It'll work out.
Yeah. I mean, thinking the right thing and doing the right thing are two very, very different things. You know what I'm saying? One accomplishes nothing. One accomplishes everything that you wish it to. You know, it's just that simple. Just let go. Let go. What have you got to lose that they're not going to take from you anyway? And this is like, there were two big incidents that happened in recent history that kind of made me sit bolt upright in bed. The first being the Gulf of Mexico oil crisis. And at the time, I was kind of looking after autistic boys and things like that, and just doing basically part-time, and the rest of it doing all my activism. And then I sat bolt right upright, and I was just like, you know what? The world is too messed up for me to spend any time looking after autistic boys. Okay, I can't do that anymore. I've got a hell of a lot more important things to do than look after boys whose parents think that they cannot be cured and will not in any way, shape or form even try anymore. Okay, it's not good enough. So I called up my dad, and he's dead now, and I said, Dad, I need money. Okay, I need to start my radio show. I've just been offered. I've been doing my own show for a short period of time, and he gave me $5,000, and I gave half of that to my producer. And it was just that whole sitting bolt upright in bed, like, oh my God, everything's screwed, that kicked me into action. And I was able to use that money to support myself for an extended period of time and to greatly evolve the show to the point where enough people now learned about me and enough people started donating where I didn't need another $5,000 payment as I started to grow an audience who were willing to support me on a monthly basis for like $5 a month or whatever. And I was away. And then Fukushima happened. And I get a call from Benjamin Fulford on the day of the tsunami. You know, I was the first person he called. You know, that's extraordinary. And at the time I was a very inexperienced radio show host comparative to what I am now. And to have somebody of that caliber, you know, that sort of audience that he normally draws to it, to bring me first out of anybody else was just like, you know what? I am going to be one of the biggest radio show hosts in the world because I have stopped messing around. You know, that was my 2012 motto. I was kind of really sleepy in my car. I was filming a dance party and that kind of thing. And I was just like, you know what? I can't be bothered even filming these people anymore. And they were just vacuous, drunk and stupid people and whatever, you know. Just having a few beers in the car by myself outside the club. And I was listening to the radio. These poor guys who were stuck there at 4 o'clock in the morning commenting on New Year's Eve and what have you. And I was just thinking, 2012, time to stop fracking around. And as soon as I got out of my own way, everything just sort of started to fall into place. And that's the thing. You have to have faith, real, strong, religious level faith in yourself and doing the right thing. Okay, you have to be a zealot. You have to be willing to sacrifice everything. It's like, am I comfortable? Yes. Okay, well, let's get uncomfortable for a second here. Let's see how deep the rabbit hole goes. Let's see how strong I can make myself by hurting myself, by looking at all these harsh realities, and thus I will develop a thick skin. And all those other people out here who have experienced real harsh realities as well suddenly see me as one of their allies, and we have a good time together, and we suddenly make things happen. Okay, doing a radio show is actually making something happen. People would say, oh, you're just talking about it or whatever. Yeah, but we're talking about it, and we're giving people advice, and we're recording it so that posterity, people in the future, will be able to look back and listen to these shows that Chris Green and Vinny Eastwood have been doing and what have you, and go, you know what, these guys were right. And they were right way back in the day. And it's because we're doing the right things. Of course we'd wind up being correct. What's your motivation here? Do you want to be politically correct, or do you want to be correct? It's a simple choice. Do you want to tell the truth, or do you want to muddy the waters and hope that nothing bad happens to you? Hell, man, if you try to avoid bad things happening to you, I can guarantee you a hell of a lot worse things are already happening inside your head than anybody else would really be able to do to you, because you've already defeated yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's
fall into it.
The truth. Obviously there is a right and a wrong, and, time will tell. And obviously, instinctually, all of us, people in general, we all want to be right, feel like we're valued, loved, appreciated, etc. But it's really just about telling the truth at all costs and not being afraid to be uncomfortable. I love the way that you actually put that, because if you're comfortable, too comfortable especially, then something's wrong. Being uncomfortable is where growth comes from, I think. And you talked about just having, sincere faith in yourself, that you'll be successful, that you can succeed, and that you can do it. And I think that we all should and need to possess that kind of almost religious faith in ourselves. And, I really don't think you can go wrong if you do that. You got to trust your instincts, trust your gut. And, Vinny, we probably both, I would say, run the most, politically incorrect shows on the planet. So we're definitely not trying to just, please people or placate people or make the masses comfortable. We're about truth, getting that to the people, let them investigate it, let them learn from it, and hopefully it brings real, positive, meaningful change to the world, which I believe it already has. And that's not just a byproduct of us, that's a byproduct of people. And, that is what I would say I do see shaping the world as we close out this year, 2012, as we approach 2013. And, a lot of us are our own worst enemies. We're the bottleneck to our own success. Release the bottleneck, trust in ourselves, and just push ahead and don't think too hard about it. Trust it. It's the hardest thing to do in the world. I don't think you can fail. Only good things can happen. And failure is good. In fact, if you're not getting punched in the face and bloodied up occasionally, then you're not trying, my friend. And that's honestly how I feel about it. So what a great show today, Vinny. I'm excited to come on your program next. I'm, of course, here with Vinny Eastwood of the Vinny Eastwood Show.